skills, because as you know, it is very important to impart these computer skills. Now here, what are the two functions? There are many functions of a computer, but in the age group of 6 to 11, what are the two functions? One, computer as a machine is to be understood and mastered. So you need to master that. It is not like, the computer is your boss and you get addicted and stuff like that. You need to know how to utilize its particular functionalities, and then utilize it for your own needs, and with that degree in itself. Then it is also an aid in teaching. For teachers, what is it? It is also an aid in teaching. It's nice, PPT is colorful, PPT is eye catching, and children kind of get stimulated with visuals. So that's the reason why we have this computer. So next page, please.
ये कैसे होगा ये? One second, let me just page down, maybe down. Okay. Yeah, better.
Yeah. So, but there are cons to these, computers and any gadget for that matter. So, what are the cons? It shouldn't be started before 14 years, is what our textbook, kind of says. But I feel, maybe till 10 years you can wait, and then you can, go ahead as with computer as a subject. Again, you would have noticed that there was this huge scandal and Roha about the White Hat Junior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wherein they started off campaigning that, oh, since it is pandemic, your child can learn computer coding by the age of 6 and so on. See, this kind of blew up, and it kind of went way ahead, where the educators kind of got together and they asked, why is it necessary for a 6-year-old to learn coding? And why is this kind of education being imposed on a child? So it was not necessary, and there was a huge debate and all that. So moving on, there is an influx of information. It is like a dual-edged sword. Yes, you have information on your fingertips, but then there is an influx of information. You don't know what to take, what to leave, especially for a child. Even when we search for IGNOU answers, sometimes you see such varied answers, and then you should use your cognitive ability to understand what was the question, how has IGNOU approached it, and what am I supposed to write in my assignment. But a child will not be able to do that. And next is overusage may cause severe physical and social developmental issues. See, this is one thing that has been noticed time and again. What are the physical issues? Eye strain, because continuous, that light is very harmful to the eye. Leave alone a child, even for an adult, it is, harmful. And there is something called tennis elbow that has been noticed with children who have used computers and adults who have used computers. This was something that was noticed only with sports person. But right now we see it with people who have excessively used computers. Then there is neck strain. There is a particular angle you bend, and you see your screen, or you see your laptop and so on. But that is not the angle that is innate to human posture. So that in itself will put some strain on your neck. Then lack of emotional expression. See, this is one of the most scariest feature here. Lack of human being is an emotional being. So if you say that these gadgets, the gadget doesn't emote to you, so you are kind of left in a emotionless atmosphere, and you then kind of get used to it. Getting used to such an atmosphere is something that is very worrisome, and it has to be corrected. And that's the reason why we have we always say that there should be limited screen time, which unfortunately some of the parents don't follow, despite us telling so many times. They don't follow this. So if you see in Nimhas, there is a separate vertical being opened up called the Shut Clinic, wherein they treat people with such gadget addiction, internet addiction and stuff like that. And when we asked Dr. Manoj Sharma, like what was the youngest age that a child was brought in for gadget addiction. He said it was 9 years, but I suspect there are children younger than 9 that are, addicted to computer. Next slide. Next.
Radhura,
Huh.
Saundarya had question. She raised her hand for some reason. Do you want to ask now, Saundarya?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is she there? Saundarya? I don't know what.
Okay,
She
we'll
is
move on.
responding.
Yeah. Acha.
I can't see her responding. I don't know. All right. That's
Yeah.
the next slide.
It's okay. She can ask me anytime. No
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
I
So
thought it's
next
related
comes.
with the slide.
Yeah. So next comes research says that though computers certainly reinforce learning and provide opportunity to explore, they don't seem to accelerate the acquisition of knowledge. So this is very profound, and this is very wisdom like what they have said. The computer doesn't accelerate the acquisition of knowledge. It just lays, आपको क्या चाहिए ले लो kind of a thing. So that is again, I have put it under the con, because it doesn't really facilitate knowledge seeking zeal in an individual. So next is screen time needs to be monitored. As I told you earlier, screen time has to be monitored, whether it is a young child or an adult. Sometimes even we are addicted to it. Like, certain things we go on. Now there is Netflix, Amazon kind of a thing. And we just, go on with movies or other stuff. Once in a while, yes, maybe, but you have to monitor your screen time within a day. Next, please. Okay, so teaching for knowledge. This is very important. Knowledge, even this, I think I've repeated this yesterday as well. Knowledge is the humility to know and accept the existence of the unknown. So you have to be very humble. What is a knowledgeable person? He or she is very humble to know that, yes, I know this much, but there is also something that I do not know. And there is also something, and that will lead, that is a stepping stone of her seeking further knowledge. So this is what it is. And again, Aaron Russell defines intelligence as including both actual knowledge and receptivity to knowledge. That means you have to seek knowledge. You have to ensure that you go and seek. For that, you need to have curiosity. That I'll come again. But then this is what is a very beautiful statement that he has given. So that this also leads us to the path of humility, that you don't know everything. There are certain other areas where we need to seek knowledge, and this is where he has put it in a very crisp and nice way. And the other thing is, it is not possible to train intelligence without imparting information. So you cannot train a child or an adult without imparting information. You need to be knowledgeable to talk about it. If someone wants to take up a class in, say, cooking, then they need to know what this cooking is. They need to know certain technicality of it. However, I'll still come back to this, that the ratio of um, in imparting knowledge should be in 20%. That is, 80% should be inspiring, but 20% is only passing on of your borrowed knowledge. Then again, intellectual development depends on curriculum. So here they are talking specifically about this middle childhood, wherein they say that intellectual development, how will the child develop intellectually? It depends on the curriculum. That's why you need trained professionals to design the curriculum, and that's what some of the schools, they definitely do. They sit and they plan their curriculum in the holidays, and then they impart the knowledge to the students. So what is taught and how is it taught? That is very important. What is taught is definitely important, but how is it taught? Just because someone else is teaching Hindi in UKG doesn't mean that you have to bring down and say that I'll teach Hindi in LKG. That doesn't make any sense. In fact, it exerts immense pressure on the child, and then the child is clueless. You are pressurized to kind of impart. See, if you see these online classes these days, maths teacher is given around say 30 minutes or so. In that she has to finish a chapter. In that she has to kind of say, I mean, teach them complex concepts, maths concept, which half of the class doesn't understand, and then she has to move on because she has a time constraint, as well as there is no uh, kind of one-to-one interaction here where the child comes back and asks out. Nothing of that sort is happening. So the best approach to this kind of a situation would have been to reduce the curriculum. You reduce it, no problem. If the child doesn't learn Pythagoras theorem this year, he or she will definitely learn it next year. That's all right. But that I don't see many of the schools doing that. So next, please. So let the child learn from for the pleasure of knowing and not for the exams. This point I think I have elaborated last class, where I have told that it cannot be memorizing, parroting everything and then vomiting it on your exam paper. Have you learned it? Have you learned the concept? Has there been enough questions raised in your head when you have read this chapter, and so on? Then without curiosity, knowledge is difficult to be imparted. This is a very, very crucial aspect. You need to be curious, only then you will seek knowledge. At the same time, a child should be curious, and a child should express his or her curiosity. Only then we shall be able to impart this knowledge. Next, please. Okay. Imparting knowledge in the following areas. So they have given different subjects and certain, research ways of how you can impart and all that. And I have added few my own. So these are the ways. Now, how to teach a child geography? So geography can be started by the tales of a traveler. So you can tell about Ibn Battuta, how he came and what he saw, and where all did he go, did he follow the Silk Road, and so on. Then pictures. See, geography is beautiful, no? There are hills, there are rivers, there is Deccan Plateau, and so on. Then videos. Videos are also helpful because you cannot explain Alaska sitting in India. So the child needs to see how icy it is, how cold it is, and so on. Then the peculiarities or uniqueness of various countries. See, this one point will apply even within India. So, India, as you see, is very diversified. India, as you see, is very vast and very geographically also it is very diversified. So that's the reason why you have to tell. So here, Kashmir is like this, and these are the uniqueness of Kashmir, whereas Kanyakumari is like this. These are the uniqueness of Kanyakumari, and this will harness respect in the child. So the child will respect that diversity. The child will understand that uniqueness is good. The child will never equate uniqueness to weirdness. See that when that happens, that is the downfall of education is what I would call. Never call a different person weird. Never call a different culture weird. That culture is different. That culture is unique. That's all there is. Then local map reading. See, now this is very important. Like you need to have a local map reading. Like what is there? What do you see next to you? There is a school there. Then when you go a little bit further, there is a hospital. Then when you go a little bit further, what is there? You see shops. There is a veterinary clinic and so on. So start off with local mapping, not like start telling them the map of India and stuff. Huh?
One question.
Huh?
See, in this all methods of teaching, for example,
Huh?
tales, pictures, or videos, etc. The video, let's say it is a cartoon, YouTube, basically videos.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, if you search for anything, you will definitely get a cartoon video or a story video, something like that. So kind of that overshadows all the other methods, right? If you are calling a bunch of kids for telling a story, yes, there is a personal touch and things like that. Sometimes works, but again, storytelling itself is a skill. It's not like every father or every mother will be skilled in that direction. So
Mhm.
what are the things we can do? I mean, in your experience, is it a challenge for rest of the new video influx? Is it a challenge for rest of the methods that you are here? Because books nowadays nobody's reading. I don't see many bookstores even when I travel.
See,
And
one thing I'll point out here is visual stimuli will always be a point above, your other stimulus. Okay, any which way,
true, true,
whether
and
you show a picture,
that's
whether you
exact
show a
point, no?
video. Huh?
And that's exact point. So that's kind of, it's not little bit, it's huge and it's largely overshadowing everything else. Nowadays, kids are only focused on YouTube. And the content is different. Content is all these, but all this comes in YouTube. So that ends up
I
being
would.
probably the only medium. No.
Can I just
No,
add
no.
something,
I would,
Mridula?
yeah.
Yeah. So, Praharsh, it's a combination of a lot of things. Like when you're talking about stimulating a child, it is, of course, multimedia, audio, visual. For example, geography. So I remember one of the DPSs, I think it was in Gurgaon. So what they did was to make them understand states. They converted one classroom into each state. So one was Assam, one was Mizoram, one was, and they got all the products. Either they made it or they they got it from their houses. Okay, this one is from Nagaland, and they also dressed in that way. What they
I
did
get the
was they
point. Those things are possibilities. Yeah, there are possibilities around
so
it.
they
For
just
example, I
got
also
all
had
the
experience like
students,
that.
to go to
Kids
one
and
So
dinners.
street.
his
Yes, I
point
got it.
is the
My point is little
visual
different.
thing is superseding the other
One more second. One more
mode
second.
of
Same thing.
imparting
Yeah,
knowledge.
Mrutula.
Yeah,
One more second.
no.
One more second.
Go on,
Go
go
One more
ahead.
on.
second. See,
Yeah.
same thing. And my kid also went in as a, I think, Japanese 1 year, Chinese next second year, and all that. And for that also, they had to do some research and everything. For that research also is done in YouTube. And even kids, even teachers are actually following same. They are picking something from YouTube, and the dress is like that. The song should be like this, etc. So at the end of the day, they all comes out of YouTube. The expression is different. They try to see if they can escape this somehow, but I feel that somehow it's not happening the way I wish it would.
So
Just a thought.
I'll tell
What
you
is the
one
Something we
thing.
point
can do.
here?
See,
Hey, what's the point here?
suppose, okay.
Basically, see what I'm saying is
Okay,
basically the
I
point
got
is.
your point. See, what is happening is for
Go ahead.
One of you decide, yeah.
So we
so
raise our then we'll take turns.
so what I was trying to say is yes, because many of the adults themselves have given YouTube such a place and position in high throne that they are not seeing any other mode of communication. Suppose you bring in India map with all the states and their peculiarities. The peculiarities in the sense mountain, or it's a plateau or kind of a thing. Then you paste it on the suppose your cupboard, you paste it on the cupboard or one of the walls. What happens is, without your knowledge, the child is seeing that. Without your knowledge, the child is curious about that. Without your knowledge, when you start talking, hey, you know what, see, Kanyakumari is in the tip of it, India, did you see that? Then without your knowledge, the child is interested to see that map of India. So it is where you show. You understood? Yes, I understand the advent of YouTube and other videos are, too much. That is because the adults are hovering over it, not because the child is hovering.
I was coming from a different direction. I was trying to say that YouTube and all, we know kind of they have an evil side. Why not give them the respect they deserve, in my opinion, and make that probably is the best medium to teach, and make it in a healthy fashion. Can you put it in not in a small TV where kids' eyes will be burned and neck will be crashed? Why not put it in a healthy fashion? Have a YouTube in a, let's say, big video where you can actually comfortably watch it, time it properly, etc., etc. Why make it present it as evil? Why not accept the fact that it is going to be like this going forward?
Praharsh, if you, sorry, Madhura, but I think Praharsh, there is already a plan where you can monitor what your children see, and where only contents of children will be popping up on the YouTube homepage. it's
Yeah,
kind of fun
definitely.
is there. So that will still give you the healthy way of presenting, limited version and all that to take your side.
Hey
And
guys,
I
Prahash,
agree.
let's do one thing now. One
thing.
second, I have a suggestion. Can we finish the presentation?
Yes,
Whatever
yes, yes.
Mridula has prepared, let's keep this for the end of the thing. There are lots of ideas. It's just one of them, right? YouTube or whatever map. So we can discuss this later. I think let her just go through the lesson, no, once to get a holistic picture.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do it. Let's do it. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So moving on from there, what I would like to say is Praharsh was basically telling that how we can, as adults, we can monitor and we can, have a control over it, and that's a fantastic idea if I were to ask, and that is a need of the hour also. So next, what I had written was drawing a map of your surrounding using appropriate signs. Like, if there is a hospital, then what is the sign there? There are hospital beds drawn to indicate that there are hospitals, or a plus symbol. And if there is school, then two children crossing this road, zebra crossing. So that is the symbol written there. So these are the signs the children have to be familiar with, and let them draw the local map. So then they know what they are seeing, then they know what they can replicate, and then they know how they can read a map. Next PDF, please. So next subject, history. So what is there in history? History is a story of man, his story. So here we can start off with story of the man from savage life to modern advances. Now what happens here? How did he come? He was a lonely creature. Then he got into group concept. Then he got into staying at a particular place. Then whether in caves, there he expressed, and so on and on. The discovery of the fire, it is such a beautiful thing, right? For man to discover fire. Today, what would we be without fire? Then cave paintings. Even today, archaeologists are so mesmerized by the cave paintings, how they expressed. Again, as I told you yesterday, art is a form of expression. Art is liberating. So this is what they did. And places and their origin. See, there is a small place called Kapu in Udupi. And in reality, Kapu should be spelled as K-A-P-U, but it is spelled as K-U-P, Kop. So I was always curious, why is this place spelled as Kop? Then I understood that, I asked, few people out there, and they told me that this was a former British colony, and they had built a lighthouse, and they had done some trading, but they couldn't pronounce Kapu. So they did it as Kop. So these are, you would find thousands of such stories. Go ahead and tell the stories of the places and their origin. The children are always fascinated by it. Next, the rise and fall of civilization. This is again a beautiful thing in history. The rise, how a civilization rose to its, summit, and how did it fall? What were their follies? This will teach us, how what went wrong, how it could have been corrected, and this is how we could pursue our own future. There is an old adage that says that roam every place and read every book. This will, kind of increase your knowledge. This will kind of tell you that knowledge is a continuous thing, knowledge is fluid, and this is something that will ensure that you can pick up any topic with any person. Once you do this, there are certain people who are well traveled and well read. These are the people, they can converse with anybody, and their social skills are so legitimate that people are like waiting to have a conversation with them. So next slide, please. Now, this is important. You need to connect history and geography. See, the other two chapters, you cannot kind of treat them as, separate entities. You need to connect them. If they don't know why is it historic, then they wouldn't appreciate geography. So that's the reason you need to connect them and give a very wholesome picture to the child. Also history and philosophy. Now this is really brilliant. Why history and philosophy? Philosophy is towards humanity. It is about mankind, like Buddha, Khalil Gibran, Socrates, etc. All these people are kind of who have contributed so much to mankind that even today people read their books, not in a religious way maybe, but nonetheless they have some profound wisdom to be parted. So history and philosophy also go hand in hand. Next please. Science can be very basic. Okay, so there is a typo here. So the solution may be what? Sugar water, and the solvent, and the solute may be sugar. So this is something even a 6-year-old will understand. So science need not be we cannot wait for say 14 years or 10 years, only then we teach them science. No, science is there in everyday life. So every small child can be taught science, though I think our textbook says it should be taught after 14, but I don't see the point. Next, learning by doing. A child will learn. So you give a spoonful of sugar to the child, and you ask the child to dissolve it. He will see that it is dissolved. You give an ice to a child, and he will see it is melting. Why is it melting? Because it is cooler in the refrigerator, and because of the temperature outside, it is melting. So this is what the child will connect to it. And a story of various scientists. So this is one basic thing where you can kind of motivate children to pursue science in a way that has never been pursued before. Like examples of Einstein, examples of Marie Curie. These are the people who inspire even adults, even people like us. When we hear their stories or when we read about them, they are so inspirational. So they don't have a time frame. They are like they'll they'll be relevant generations to come. And again, body and health. So there is this you get these models of how, where the heart is, where the lungs are, where how the skeleton is, where the brain is. So depending on their, a small kid like 5 years old can always learn like these are my hands, whatever external body organs are there. Whereas once they grow like 6 or 7, we can always teach them internal organs, so they pick up very soon and they learn. So this is also an important part of science. And science incongruence with humanity or philosophy. So if you had noticed, all the ancient Greek scientists were excellent philosophers. Their philosophy is so profound. Even today, people pick a leaf or two from their books. So science and philosophy, they do go hand in hand. Next, please.
Even Indians, yeah.
Okay. Language. Now, language has been elaborated yesterday, so I'll just breeze through it so that we have enough time for discussion. So, teaching language should be less stressful. Again, as I told you, teaching should be less stressful. Don't, pressurize them to learn quickly and be profound and have a Queen's English. Nothing. Then, storytelling with pictures. Yesterday, I have shown you the picture books. So, first you start with bigger pictures, smaller text, and then slowly you increase the text content. Then games like match the pictures and words. Why do we do this? This is for vocabulary building. Flashcards, again, vocabulary and memory and connecting the dots. Then exposure. Again, whatever you read, they need to be exposed to it in real world so that they connect and they can recollect the word. Then encourage to think in that language. It is very important. People who learn English initially, one of our teachers used to say, If you don't learn to think in English, you cannot talk in English. So it is very important that you think in English. Only then the vocabulary will flow. And there are external tools like, Duolingo, which can teach you other foreign languages like German or Japanese or anything. So as per your interest, you can always, go ahead and learn. Even children pick it up very quickly. Once they are good with these languages, you can always go with tools like Duolingo to enhance their language prowess. Next, please. So, literature. Now, what is the contribution of literature to mankind? So, it enhances the beauty of language. People who have read literature, they can just quote some things from somewhere, any given situation. They can just come up with a saying, or they can just come up with an anecdote from another literature, some paragraph, some beautiful, dialogue kind of a thing. And they have this flair for writing. See, what does literature do? Your language improves. It kind of, makes it very flowery and soothing and beautiful to read. So, and then training of memory, certain literature like Shakespeare and all, it is like you have to have a good memory to, know. And even certain mm, uh, other literatures there, even in your colloquial languages, if you see, there are so many characters, there are so many people whom you have to remember. You have to remember in Indian literature, sometimes you have to remember their relationship also, like how was this fellow related to that one, and so on. So it is very it is kind of training to your memory. It jogs your memory, like. And then base for plays, dramas, movies, musical. So you have this base. Literature is always kept as a base for, plays, dramas, movies, which, most of the people enjoy. And these are these add to the aesthetic uh, sense of a human being. So next, please. Now, this is value education. So what is value education? Again, value education cannot be defined or bracketed. But then, what makes an education look, very valued and very well approached kind of a thing? So one, it bridges the gap between ideal self and real self. So there are two selves here. What is that? Ideal self. What is ideal self? I want to open a restaurant and I want to have my signature dishes all around, and then people would come, people would appreciate, they give me 5 stars and stuff like that. What is my real self? Real self is I'm, kind of baking basic stuff. I'm kind of, not even trying continental stuff. So now I have to bridge the gap. For that, I need to know that I I am yet to reach that level of my ideal self. Nonetheless, it is good to be ambitious, but then I have to work towards it. So you have to move towards your ideal self. That education would do that. The education would help you to evaluate yourself in the beginning, and then what are the steps to be taken, like short-term goals and long-term goals and stuff like that, and to seek information from the others who are already in the field or hotel business. So Russell had 4 ingredients for value education. Again, Russell came up with 4 ingredients. What was the first one? It was vitality. Vitality is nothing but physical well-being. So what did he say there? It is more of, the state of being strong and active or energetic. So Russell said that it is important that one be in his or her fittest self to do other activities and to move ahead in life, to have ambition, to have goals and stuff like that. So this again is that is why we kind of stress on physical education and physical activities when it comes to children. So next, please. So health is wealth. So eat consciously. So health is wealth, as we all know. Yeah, we need to take good care of our health. So if health is, weak, or we have some ailment, it will always be in the behind of your head, and then it will always be as a barrier for you to move ahead. So eat consciously. Some of the things are like eat consciously. Don't eat for the sake of eating, watching TV, and head being somewhere and all that. Eat consciously. It hardly takes 10 to 15 minutes for an adult to eat. If you have that habit, the child who is watching you will also cultivate that habit to eat consciously. Without, these days mothers are always with the mobile, and the children are somehow exposed to that, um, eating while watching TV or mobile or something. My basic question is, who taught the child to watch the mobile and then eat? It is an adult who was present there. The child by birth wouldn't know, right, that while eating I can demand mobile or something of that sort. It is a habit that is cultivated but difficult to let go. So go for a walk. Nature therapy, again, you will always find an ophthalmologist who will always tell you, people who work on screens and stuff like that, they need to blink their eyes every now and then, and they need to see out something green. They say that you just watch out of your window where there is something green. The greenness soothes your eyes. Green is what? Nature. So you need to have a nature therapy every now and then. Then makes one, what does this do? Vitality. It makes one feel good and full of life. As I said earlier, this is what the aim of vitality is. And second one is courage. Some even in our textbook, I think the definition of courage is absence of fear, but I disagree to it. It is not absence of fear. The courage is definitely not absence of fear, but the control over it. You know you are scared of certain things, but you take enough measures to face that fear head on. So that is courage. Courage is a skill that can be developed. Yeah, this is another beautiful saying. It is a learned skill. It is not like by birth you are courageous kind of a thing. No, nothing of that sort. You are learning this. Uh, you are trying to first identify your fear and take measures in that direction of facing your fear or overcoming it. So that is courage. So I've given an example of Germany. Germany was battered badly, both ethically and both logistically during World War II, because of the Holocaust and the other stuff that they did. So it was battered badly, and the image of German people suffered massively during World War II. But then Germany had the courage to stand up and say, we are sorry. And then they have built a country today which, whose army kind of has a privilege that a subordinate can refuse to follow the order of his superior if he thinks it goes against humanity. See, this is one of the most bold steps taken by any army under the sun. And in an army, as you know, no subordinate can or surpass a senior. But then here, German army allows you that privilege. So this is one of the things where it has taken corrective measure, and it takes immense courage to do that. Even Japan, for that matter, Japan has accepted the folly of attacking Pearl Harbor during World War II, and then it has said we are sorry. And saying sorry also takes courage. See, sometimes even we can't muster the courage to say sorry to someone whom we have slightly wronged. So this is what courage is all about. Next, please. Next is sensitiveness. So what is this sensitiveness? Sensitiveness is, this belongs to emotions. You're being sensitive. And where does this lead to? It leads to the path of being empathic. It is not empathetic. It is empathic. There is no word called empathetic. It is always empathic. So it always leads you to the path of empathic. What is empathic? Being empathic is nothing but you are walking in the other person's shoes. You are knowing exactly how the other person is feeling at that point of time. So sensitive, if you're not sensitive to the sufferings of your surrounding, you will not be able to be empathic. But then again, there is a downfall to it. If you are oversensitive, then it is self-harming. So you have to have this check. You cannot be oversensitive. Oh, global warming, what do we do? Kind of a thing. You do your best. That's all. You plant trees. You don't throw away plastic here and there. You waste less water. So you do your best. Don't go around crying, crying, crying. And some people are really depressed about global warming, and this is very self-harming is what I feel. Then fourth one would be intelligence. So what is intelligence? It is an aptitude for learning, and it is continuous. As I told you yesterday, intelligence is always a continuous process, and it is a learned skill, and then acquired both by practice and seeking information. So this again we have combined Dewey and Russell's theory, and we have said that it is done by practice, right? You seek exposure, and then it is also done by seeking information. You need people or sources to seek information for this. And then curiosity is the stepping stone. That is investigative instinct. So if you are not curious, then how would you kind of seek knowledge? So never ever hush down your curiosity, even as an adult. Never hush down your curiosity. By curiosity, I don't mean like what is happening in somebody else's life, but by seeking knowledge, your surrounding and stuff like that. Next, please. So curiosity must be paired with observation. So this is very important. Suppose you come to a room, some friend's room, and there you see a book. Then you ask, see, what is this book about? How was this written? And how was this kind of scene? And where did you get the book? Who is the author of the book? These are all curiosity questions. But then if you hadn't observed the book in the first place, would you be curious? Would you go and seek knowledge? No, that is not possible. Then it is also availability of a responsible adult to cater to the child's curiosity and give it momentum. So this is what we do. Every class, whenever I used to take a class, the children know that after every class there is a question. Maybe 10-15 minutes of question where the child can ask anything and everything under the sun, need not be pertaining just to the subject that has been taught. So this will enable the child to ask question. This will enable the child to kind of seek knowledge. And there was this thing that I read long back, wherein they said the ancient languages were learned through asking questions, like what is your name? They started off with
Very
that.
true, very true. I agree.
Yeah, so this is how it was learned. So that is why question plays very important role. And as a responsible adult, we must never hush a child when he or she asks questions. Next, please. Yeah. So other subjects. So what comes under other subjects? It is physical education. Again, as you have seen earlier, it increases vitality. It is not just exercise, but inculcates discipline. If you have seen sports people, they are always disciplined. See, they would have let go of sleeping on a Sunday and woken up at say 4 or 5 to go and hit the gym or to go and practice. So this inculcates discipline, and social skills are honed. So here, a sportsman has to interact with a lot of people, be his dietitian, be his team members, be his gym instructor, be his coach, and his social skills have to be very apt for him to pursue his passion, that is the sports. Then next comes fine art education. See, fine art education, as I told you yesterday, is very liberating, and this should be included in every school, and every child should be exposed to it, be it 6 years old or be it kind of 15 years old. They should be exposed to fine arts. And what does it do? Suppose it is dance or other form, then it is like body training. And it is also right brain exercise, and it brings in aesthetic sense. So this is very profound thing that our predecessors have handed to us, wherein you get to see what they have done. At the same time, you get to be unique, and art kind of retains your uniqueness, which is very important in raising a child. You have to retain the uniqueness of the child. He should not be one among the flock of sheep. So next please. Okay, as I told you, art is liberating. And then there are certain opinions, at least in the Indian scenario, where they say teach singing later than dance. Why? Because it strains on the vocal cord of the child. So singing should come later on, because some children, they find it very strenuous on their vocal cord, because it's very yet to fully develop. However, even certain dance forms, like suppose you take Bharatnatyam, there are mudras in it. You can't just hold a child's hand and force him or her to do the mudras. Maybe that hasn't developed. Like yesterday, I told you the pincer grip and that monkey fist kind of a thing. So wait for the right time. Do not enforce it. Let him or her enjoy dance, and then take dance or any art form as a personality development. This is very important. And third one is excursion. So seeing and experience, this will help the child to remember well. As I told earlier, visuals are always a notch higher. This sensory thing of ours will always ensure that we remember it well, we recollect it well, and they are aware of their environment. You take the child to a neighboring flower shop, you take the child to a neighboring vegetable shop, they will be aware of their environment, and this enhances their interaction with their environment. And then it is always a welcome change, when either it is a child or an adult, when we are outside those four walls, whether it is a classroom or our home, we kind of loosen up, we kind of look forward to a beautiful experience, and we kind of try gel well, and kind of interact with that environment of ours, and we bring back such memories. Next please. So remember this, middle childhood is 6 to 11, whereas middle school is different, all right? Middle school is 5th, 6th, 7th standard. This is beyond like 12 years and stuff like that. I think 11 plus. So this terminologies are important. And what does middle school do? What do they need in totality is what is summed up here, that proper direction to their curiosity and instincts. We have learned so many instincts, and we are trying to hone it, or we are trying to give them direction where they are so good at absorbing things, and their mind is prepared to learn new skills that is anyways there, and take responsibility. Suppose you tell a child of 6 to 11, in between 6 to 11 years, you tell that child that come and keep the things in the fridge, whatever grocery items we have bought, keep it in the fridge. The child will readily take the responsibility, and when you see the child taking up the responsibility, it is up to you to give a crisp compliment. Don't overdo it. Wow, my child, my amazing kid, blah blah blah, kind of a thing. And do not fake it. Just give, well done. That's enough. That's enough for them. Just smile, look into their eyes and say that. And be authentic. That is enough. They will be ready to take more responsibilities. And enhance observation. See, as and how they will have that observation skills. But then when they are observing things, it is important that we say that, wow, see, I'm glad you observed it, I did not observe it, kind of a thing. So this is one of the short ways of how you can kind of enhance their observation skills. then express emotions to a certain accuracy. This age group can express their emotions to a certain accuracy. Like they can say, I'm sad because that uncle said this to me. I'm upset because you did not listen to me. And they would connect the dots well, and they would express it very clearly. Whereas younger children would always say, pout their mouth, or would make a crybaby face to express that they are sad or they are upset, or go and sit in a corner and say that they are angry. But these children are explicitly, this middle childhood, this age, they are explicitly able to tell their emotion verbally, and it is to a great accuracy. And then express emotions to a, yeah, that is done. So teacher plays a pivotal role here. Here you have to remember that their world revolves around teacher. Why is that? Because the younger children go to school for a limited time frame, whereas these children have an extended school hours. So obviously they spend time, enough sufficient time with their teacher, and that's the reason their world revolves around the teacher. So please, next please. Now it brings to a question, like this is a very debatable question again. Who is a teacher? Once I was just sitting in very insignificant group, and conversation was going haywire here there, and suddenly one lady, she just decides to tell me this, that teacher to koi bhi ban sakta hai na. It's like, teacher, anybody can become a teacher. Suppose you don't get a job anywhere else, then you become a teacher. Then I did not reply at that point of time, but I definitely think that is not the case. Anybody and everybody cannot be a teacher. For teaching is a very noble profession, and it is beyond the salary that you can ever get in this industry. So who is a teacher? It's a responsible adult, yes, of course. Then full of encouragement. This is where your patience is tested, where you encourage the child despite the n number of times he or she is unable to do that task in hand. You still do not compromise on your encouragement. Then you wake up every single day, and you come to the school to inspire children and then to teach. Inspiration should come first, and teaching can come later on. As I told you, 80-20% ratio, it should be in that 80-20 ratio. Then conformity is practice. Yes, as a school, there are certain guidelines, there are certain ways how you have to behave, there are certain conformity that is expected of you, but uniqueness is retained. That is the beauty of teachers who are genuinely passionate about their profession, where they retain the uniqueness. If you see a teacher who is so passionate about teaching and who is taking a class, you will always find in his class that there are kids who are so very unique, so very different, yet they are a group. They are, you cannot point out that they do not conform to the school regulations and stuff like that. Then develop an intellectual adult who is socially adhering and exercises his rights and duties with panache. This is like, you have to develop this adult who is socially compatible. You cannot have an adult who will break all the societal rules and go around. No, he or she should be socially adhering. At the same time, he knows to exercise his rights and also duties with panache. That is, it comes very naturally for him or her to exercise. That is a well developed adult, as we see, and the seed is sown in this age. So finally, a teacher is also the one willing to learn and adapt. This is very important. You do not enter a class to teach, you enter a class to inspire and to learn. Teaching will happen normally. That's not a big deal. And here Robert Frost says, I'm not a teacher, but an awakener. This is so beautifully said, that you have to awaken the child who is, in some other world, and you have to tell him you can be so good, you can be so amazing, and you can be so brilliant. So some of them, there is, though I'm not a movie buff here, but I can tell you this, there is this movie called Sister Act, part 1, part 2. So if you have time, after the assignments, just go and watch. And there was a small video. I'm 1 minute ahead of the time. I mean, like ahead of the time. I took 1 more minute. But if you guys are free after the question hour or something, you can watch the video. Yeah, so that's it. Done. Everyone slept?
No,
That
we
was
are
very
here.
good.
Quite nice.
Just right. Felt back in school.
Good fun.
Yeah,
So
thank you.